Welcome back to the EJ Ward FieldView training series. In the last couple videos, I've shown you how to run reports that have already been made or something somebody else might have made. In this video, we're going to show you how to create a report from scratch. So we're going to start by dropping down the reporting folder here, and then we're going to go to create. So underneath create, we have a bunch of different options that have basically buckets of data. They're data queries, and these are the types of data that it has. So we have employees, we'll have all the information about employees. We're going to go ahead and do transactions because we've been looking at transaction reports. So there's a couple here. So we have our transactions with our Ward 3 CanSever or VIT information. We have regular transactions, transactions extended. Extended has the last fueling calculations. So in the remarks, it usually tells you if there's something special going on with it. Summation is going to have a lot of summed data that's already there. We're just going to use the regular transactions today. So if you click on any of these, it's going to open up a grid report with this actual data inside of it. Now, right off the bat, we only have transaction numbers showing here, and it's showing us a query form. So we're going to go ahead and close out of the query form first because we don't want a bunch of data to be shown, because as we're taking columns and pulling columns away and changing it around, it can kind of give you some load times every time you do it. This is just a quicker way of doing it, and then we can hit the query at the very end to make sure it's the report that we want. So first, I'm going to start out by hitting select columns. Once I hit select columns, I'm going to start choosing all the columns that I want to see inside of this report. So one of the first things is going to be our date and time. I'm going to put this on the left-hand side in between our transaction number, and we always want to have that pound sign there, so you want to leave that one there as your first column. We have our transaction number. I want to put the cost in, and then I want to put it to department, and then I can put our vehicle, so we can go look for our vehicle here. Now, one that I choose is cards. So there's vehicle card, employee card, and then there's card, and then it shows S in the parentheses. What this one is if it's using multiple cards, it will actually put both cards in that field. It will say V and then have a number for the vehicle card and then /E and then a number for the employee card. So if you're using both cards, it's an easy way to put it on there without having to have two fields taken up. So we're going to go ahead and put that in there. Next thing I want is odometer, so we're going to look at the odometer. And then I want the product type. So we're going to look for product. And we can put that after the department. And then I want to put the quantity. Which is going to be our volume. Okay. Once I have this, I want this report to be pretty simple. I might try to do a grouping. So if I want to do grouping, I'm going to go ahead and try to group by site here. And we're going to go ahead and group by the site name. So you'll drag it to the gray bar at the top. This is drag a column header here to group by that column. You can also do multiple groupings if you want to. I typically only do one. And then we'll go ahead and close our field chooser. So this is the report that we're looking at. And now we want to see data in it to make sure it populates correctly and everything looks good. So once I hit query, I can go ahead and go back a couple months. And then go to today. And scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then I can hit refresh grid. Once I have that and my report's been populated, since it's grouping and this is showing up as a grid, I can drop this guy down and I can see all of the data that's inside of it to make sure that the data is correct. So all this data looks good. I like the way that it looks. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up, and then we go to saving the report. And this is where we can pick what style of report we want to save it as. So if I click on the save button, the first thing that we have is the name. So I'm going to go ahead and name this one Transactions Training. The second thing we have is save as, and this means do we want to save it as a grid, a report, or a pivot grid. With grids, we don't have many other options. We can save it for scheduling. We can save the query, which means save the data that we actually had in the query window, which I'm not going to because every time I want a transaction report. I'm going to want different dates. And then you have your permissions. So we can set it to private, which means you're the only person that's going to be able to see it, or whatever user you have logged in as. And then public means all different users will be able to see that. So I'm going to leave this one as public. And then you have your reports, which if we select that, it gives us quite a few more options. The first thing is we have our summary options. So you can actually sum all of these different columns, and it's going to have all the columns that you have available to sum. And if you want to summarize them, you need to check the box underneath the column that says summarize with a question mark. And then you can select the summary type. So we can do a count distinct, a summary, or an average. So transaction number I don't need to because they're all unique, but I want to sum the cost and the volume. And I want to actually do a sum of both of these. After that, we can save the query if we want to. We can save for scheduling, which is going to allow us to run this report automatically and have it emailed out. And we'll be doing that in the next video. And then we have our page layout. And this is something that's different from the grids, is we can do it in landscape or portrait. I'm going to keep this one at landscape here. Now, if we change this and went to pivot grid, you're going to go back to mainly that same options that you have, except save for scheduling is going to be grayed out because we can't schedule pivot grids. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to report, keeps all of our settings that we had, and then I'm going to go ahead and save this. Once I save this report, it's going to pop up and run it so that I can see it how it looks as a regular report. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same date range that I did before. And we're going to go ahead and refresh. Okay. Now I have all that data, and then the grouping, I'm going to have the grouping right here, up here at the top, and it's in bold. So I know that that's grouped. And then at the end of each group, I should have a summary. We're going to go ahead and go to the end of the report. It's a little bit easier to see that way. Okay, so here I have my report totals, and the totals come up. Here's my total volume and my total cost. And then if I go back, I can have my summary for each site. So each site's going to have its own summary at the bottom of that site itself, and then a summary at the very bottom with the full report. The other thing that I can do with this is hit query and go all the way down to show summary only, and then refresh the report. This is going to show us just those summaries, so it's not going to show all the detailed data in between it. Now to get to this report again, since I saved it as a report, you just need to go into reports itself. And we're going to look up transactions training. And this is the report. We can go ahead and click on it to run it. And this would be the same thing if you saved it as a grid or a pivot grid. You would go into grids and find it there, or pivot grids and find it there. And that concludes the video on how to create a report from scratch in the FieldView system. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.